Hello, I just want to talk to you a little bit about the procurement template and the cost template because I know a lot of students have reached out and it's something that isn't seen as seamlessly or as easy as some of the other templates. And I get that because it's sometimes not natural for us to think in this way. Typically, when we go out and we start projects, we are just kind of doing and not really aware of what it is that we're doing specifically. And so I think this really helps you outline your thinking through a project, even if you've done projects for years and never thought of it in terms of this process. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is that procurement and cost in these two templates, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, are explained actually by also kind of a different methodology, if you will. This is PMBOK. That's kind of the process that we're using for this. But rather than focus on that, and I do think that this kind of primer hopefully helps you really understand exactly how to fill out the template. It does involve a lot of time. You have to spend a lot of time trying to kind of wrap your mind around it. And so the first thing I'm going to pull up is this procurement management plan. And they do look similar. You've got a project procurement management plan, and then your other one is your project cost management plan. And so these forms do look similar, they feel similar, but we are truly kind of dissecting two different types of services. Now, when we look at the project procurement management plan, I really want you to look at this paragraph. And the reason I say that is because if you try to step back for a second and just look at this holistically, this kind of explains what this is about. So the project procurement management plan is a component of the project management plan. So it's a piece, it's a part of the process that describes how the project team will acquire goods and services from outside the organization. So now we're not talking about internal labor hours. Do you remember that when we filled out the scope that you had kind of your internal and your external costs? So let me put this in terms of a project, okay? I'm redoing a nightclub. Let's say we had a fire suppression flood. And this was a real project of mine. It was almost $1 million project. The fire suppression system burst and it flooded the nightclub. So we were now stuck with literally reconstructing the nightclub, okay? So this project procurement plan is talking about how my team is going to acquire goods, let's say in terms of bar product, wood flooring, furniture, paint, drywall, and the services. So I might have an architect, I might have the laborers that are outside of the organization. So this plan is going to help me understand what kind of methodology, what defined process am I going to use in hiring those outside contractors and obtaining the outside goods. So my outside service contractors like the plumber and the flooring contractor and the refrigerator contractor, and the actual goods as in the wood, the furniture, the floors, the decor, etc. So if you kind of look at the next section, which is teaming agreements, what we're doing is we are looking to kind of bring all of these people together in this team. My contractors, the material companies, my wood flooring companies, we're bringing them all together in order to provide the service ultimately for the nightclub owner, to put the nightclub back together, okay? So that they can open up their doors and become functional again. So my team and these contractors and these material organizations, they become a part of my team and we work together. But how am I going to acquire their services? This is what I'm going to define is how am I going to go after those goods and services and in what way? If you're working across multiple organizations, you might find that someone might hire someone very differently than you would. And so you want to bring everyone together and say, this is the methodology, this is the process by which we all agree that we will hire these outside services and purchase these outside goods. So you're agreeing on a process. So let's go down here. These are revisions and distributions, okay? These are something that you're going to fill out as you go through the actual project. So in this revisions and distributions, this is saying, okay, on, oops, sorry, it's already 2-1. On February 1st, this was actually the date, let's say I revised it as of yesterday. This is the date that I finished my project procurement plan. And the date that I released it to all of my outside contractors and wholesale companies would be, this date. So let's say I've given it to all of them, okay? I've given it to my wood flooring suppliers, my plumbers and my flooring contractors, any other project management departments or any main offices, which would be, my boss, my client on this particular job, any outside consultants like the architects, maybe I have legal involved, and then my client, which is the owner of the nightclub. And so as I revise this, let's say I come back in on the 5th, and because it's the beginning of the project, I have some additional revisions that I've made to this project plan. And so what I want are procurement plan, and I want to make sure that I get this out to all of the clients, the contractors, consultants, etc. So this is keeping track of who you have actually given the plan to, okay? I'm sorry, I have to shut my phone off. So this is just documenting and keeping track that you have communicated with these individuals how you're going to procure and acquire goods. Now, the project procurement management plan from time to time may require updates. That's what this is right here. Any amendment to this plan shall be informed to the Change Control Board by use of the change request form and approved by the Project Change Control Board prior to distribution. This section right here may be different for you. Maybe my project would say, any amendments to this plan shall be approved first by my sponsor or secondly by the client, and then distributed accordingly to each of the contractors. Whatever your chain of command is in this project is who will dictate who has to see this first and then who can get it after that, prior to the distribution to everybody else, okay? So this is your chain of command that you have to go through in this project. Only revised parts of the plan will be distributed along with the approval and shall be accompanied by instructions on how to implement the changes. So I might be telling my subcontractors that, look, here's the instructions of how I want you to bid out this work. Once we've approved it, here's exactly what I want from you in terms of a proposal and a quote. And then I will not approve any additional change orders unless I have them in writing, signed by both you and by me. So you are making the rules. This is all about making rules. What rules are we going to follow, and what rules is everyone else on this team going to follow? My contractors, my wood flooring companies, what rules are we going to play by in doing this? And when you do that, when you lay out the rules, this is the method or the process, this is the methodology that we're going to use, or the process that we're going to use, then you are telling them exactly what you need from them. You're communicating very effectively. Have you ever been in a project where all of a sudden you come back and you've got 6 change orders and your project is now $15,000 instead of 10? But guess what? Your contractors didn't tell you there were change orders because you didn't get to approve them. So now you're kind of stuck in this quandary of fighting with your contractors about, hey, look, I didn't approve this change. You didn't ask me about this. Or you said that you were going to change this one little piece, and now all of a sudden you have a change order at the end of the job for $3,000. That was like a $600 piece. And so you eliminate all of this uncertainty, all of the potential problems by having a project procurement plan. by which everybody follows. Here is where you're going to have, just list out your project sponsor approval, okay? So once you've prepared it, you list who's prepared it, who's reviewed it, and the project sponsor approving it. That's all that this page is. It's just that you have laid out the rules, you've made the rules, and now someone is approving it. Here's our table of contents of everything that is included in this project procurement plan. So first up on the index is procurement management approach. Explain the processes, how project procurement decisions will be documented, how potential sellers will be identified, and how procurement will be conducted. So how will you document the procurement decisions? It's just saying, this is how we're going to document it. How will potential sellers be identified? And how will procurement be conducted? So all I'm saying here is, how will potential sellers be identified? Well, one of them is going to be my wood wholesaling company. And so I'm going to identify them by looking up 5 of the top wood flooring companies in the city of Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities, and I am going to take the top rated sellers of wood flooring, and then I'm going to eliminate them based on the referrals that they've given me, based on price, etc. So just how am I potentially, identifying these sellers? And how will the procurement of their services and or product be conducted? You're just laying out a process. You're just saying, look, everyone's going to follow these rules so that we are all putting our contractors, I'm not going to hire Uncle Joe to do the flooring. I'm going to, hire and identify outside contractors, consultants for services, or, subcontractors by this process. So all you're doing, it's just fancy wording for literally putting a process in here and how you're going to do each of these steps. And that's literally what you're doing here. If you look at this here, it also describes for you what a seller means. This criteria must be defined prior to the seller being selected so that the procurement process is fair and effective. So we're not just going to hire Uncle Joe and my friend John and, Susie the architect who we went to high school with. We are going to identify these sellers through a particular process. It's no different than when you're hiring someone. If you're hiring, let's say you're hiring someone off of Indeed, you're going to go through a process by which you pick the top resumes through a particular criteria. You set rules for yourself. I'm only going to look at the resumes that are submitted that at least have a minimum of a BA. Or I'm only going to look at the contractors that, a company that has sent me information on their wood flooring if they have a, better business rating, or they have reviews by, so many referrals that are 4 stars, or at least 5, at least 4 stars out of 5, if not 5. So you're kind of setting this criteria so that it isn't just a hodgepodge of hiring people without any methodology or process behind it. I know I'm getting into great detail, but I really want you, if you want this information, I really want you to be able to use these templates effectively, particularly if you are going to be a project manager in your current role or a future role. Now, here's the types of contracts that you're going to have. Define the types of contracts and the terms and conditions to be used for the project, okay? I'm going to pick only fixed price contracts with my subcontractors. The reason I do that is because I don't like surprises. So I'm only going to have flat fee contracts. I'm going to have a plumber come in, I'm going to have them bid out the job, and if they tell me that job's going to be $3,000, I want a fixed price contract. And then if they want, time and material, or if they, have some additional cost reimbursables, we're going to have to come up with a methodology of how to do that. Otherwise, it's you buy what you buy and you use your time wisely or you don't, but I'm paying you $3,000 for this project, for this section of the project, and that's to include your time and your materials. So you're either picking fixed price contracts or cost reimbursable contracts or time and material. You're picking one of these contracts that you're going to use for the project. Now it might be different. I might use my subs at time and material or fixed, and I might use, my wood flooring companies at just reimbursing the cost. But I want to know exactly what that cost is ahead of time. I want it to be a flat fee, and I don't want to be surprised by additional expenses. So if you're concerned about what does this mean, what do these contract types mean, here is an entire area that describes it for you. So most of what you're filling out is in these yellow areas, and then these are descriptions. I put this in here with sample definitions so that students could really kind of look at this and go, okay, what goes into this? What goes under, fixed price contracts? What goes into cost reimbursable contracts? What does it mean, or what goes into time and material contracts? So all of the instructions are here to help you pick the best contract type for your project. The next section is procurement constraints. Okay. Describe constraints to be considered as part of the procurement process. I pulled up a definition here for you according to PMBOK. And what is a project constraint? It's a limiting factor that affects the execution of a project. A limiting factor that affects the execution of a project. Well, some of my project constraints are that I can only work from 6 a.m. at night, or 6 p.m., I'm sorry, to 7 a.m. in the morning. So as I was putting the nightclub together, or back together, we couldn't work during the day because we would be disturbing 6 stories of office tenants. So one of the very limiting factors, one of the constraints that I had, is that I had to do all of my work between 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. the next morning. So you can list out as many project constraints as you have. Just list them out so that you are aware of them. And as you are kind of procuring your outside services, that you're aware of what one of these constraints are. So when I'm talking to my plumbers and my wood flooring installers, I have to let them know that their contracts have to have pricing in there for working after hours. So it has to have overtime in there, or, emergency rates or what have you. So constantly, most of my work has to be done after hours. So I end up, having prices that are more because they have to be able to build in that after hours time. But this way I'm not surprised. I expect then my bill to be $1,000 instead of $300 because they had to come at 7 o'clock at night. And so again, these all eliminate surprises. They define rules. What are the rules to this project? So here we are listing out our scope. Define what goods and or services will be procured and under what conditions. Okay. So one of mine is wood flooring. Okay. We just put a short description in there. One of the constraints for me is time. And then I also might have a constraint as far as a requirement. We don't have a loading dock. So one of the requirements for you is that you're going to have to bring it through the front door, but it's going to have to be after 6 p.m. You're going to have to park in a particular lot. And it's going to be on a fixed rate contract. I want you to tell me exactly how much this is going to cost me. I don't want any surprises. Guess what? It's after hours. Guess what? There's no loading dock. Tell me what your fixed price is going to be to not only deliver this wood, but then also bring it into the building after hours without a loading dock and leave it in the nightclub so that it can be installed. And so this is really just your scope. You're just defining what your goods and services are and under what conditions they'll be procured or obtained or bought. Responsibilities and authorities. Who is the person and what is their role? and what are their responsibilities, okay? So my role would have been to request the wood flooring. Oops, sorry. And you'll list out here what are going to be my responsibilities with requesting this wood flooring. And again, here's definitions of exactly what you're going to fill out here. And here are any, types of limitations. Maybe I can only request goods up to $50,000, and then I have to go to my client after that to get approval for a particular, maybe it's a Brazilian cherry floor instead of, an oak floor. And so it's going to cost $70,000 instead of $30,000. And so now I need to go to my client and ask permission for this particular and specific unique flooring. And here's just how you're going to make decisions. Explain the criteria according to which suppliers will be selected and contracts awarded. By the way, I'm not going to give my friend Joe, who's going to give me a kickback on the side of $5,100, the job just because he's giving me a kickback. I can't hire Uncle Joe either because he's my uncle. I'm going to hire the suppliers based on X, and I'm going to award the contracts based on X. So maybe I've already decided that I'm going to hire a contractor based on the quality that they're going to deliver to me, based on the fact that they can come in on time in the schedule parameters that I have given them, based on the fact that it's going to be economical and it isn't going to be the highest price bid or the lowest price bid, because I want quality, remember. I don't want just cheap labor. I want quality. I want it to be on time, but I do want it to be able to fit into my budget. And so you're going to go into a little bit more detail, but you're going to explain the criteria in which you will award the contracts and how those subs or the wood flooring companies will be selected. And this is really just agreeing on a selection criteria. Now here's procurement documentation. Here you're just going to explain what type of documentation do you need. I need an initial quote from these individuals. I want full material specification. I want to know exactly when they're going to deliver it, where it's going to be. I want to know the exact amount. And then if there are any change orders, we need to have a change order submitted. So this is a site requisition order form. Not everybody's going to have that. I don't have site requisition order forms. I'm going to set up a process by which I'm going to have the contractors follow in the documentation that I want them to provide. So I might set up under here, what my criteria are, and I might ignore the descriptions that I have up here because I don't use requisition order forms. I have typically a document that is used for estimating and quoting, and then I will have change orders. So this procurement documentation is going to be different for every single one of you based on your project. So if you need to ignore this section right here or eliminate it and create your own down here, that's fine. You're just describing the documents and forms that you're going to use, to be used for material and or service procurement. And that is going to totally depend on your project. And then you're going to list out some risk. And here are actual definitions: the risk register, risk-related contract decisions. I think this is really self-explanatory as far as what you're going to be doing to put in there for procurement risk. Any type of reporting formats that you're going to use, whatever you've communicated. So again, this is going to depend on every single one of you. I apologize, this video is getting long, but I'm trying to really give you a good understanding of each of these areas. All suppliers should be evaluated during and after delivery, and explain how. If you're going to use, form number 8057, set up by Honeywell is going to evaluate each of the suppliers, based on this particular form. Now, will some of you get into this? No. You're going to probably do an evaluation within about 3 minutes in your mind. I've had contractors that I've worked with, and after they start working, I can give them an evaluation within the first day of whether it's going to go well and they know what they're doing, or it's not going to go well and I'm never going to use them again. And I don't mean that to be cold. I just mean it that, you want people who are going to show up and deliver high quality, on time, on budget, and you begin to realize the contractors that you're going to work with again and or suppliers and the ones that you're not going to work with again. And then any type of attachments for your forms. So I'm not going to go into detail on the cost management form. All of this, if you read through it just like we did now, is going to explain every single one of these sections. And this is just now how your costs will be planned, structured, and controlled. Remember, part of coming in on budget is about controlling your costs. Here's your table of contents, and it's going to walk you through everything as far as your cost management approach, your estimate, your baseline, how you're going to control it, and what reports that you're going to use. This may not pertain to everybody, but what I'd like you to do is at least try to use some hypothetical instances on each of these. If you were to procure some of your goods outside, or you were to manage and control some of those costs, I think if you dig deep that you can maybe find something. I know it's a little harder in your service delivery projects where you're running a project and you're really delivering them a service or a process, and you're not delivering hard materials. It is a little bit different. But going through this course it's a master's level course. It is preparing you to be a project manager, and these are the things that you're going to want to know because you want to be credible, right? You want to be credible. You want, individuals on your team to be confident in you, that you know what you're doing. And this is a part of that process. So just like we are in this program to not only learn how to do maybe analytics from an MBA perspective, to dissecting organizational behaviors on the MASL side, we are here to learn something to transform us, to be different, to walk away educated, credible, and a leader in our industry. And that's what these templates are going to help you do. So I really encourage you to dive in and try to discern some of this on your own. Dig through the material, keep reading the material to try to really own this process and make it your own. Please reach out if you have any questions.